optimize your company to the rate of change that's necessary to progress with AI and get comfortable with change. Because if you got that foundation in place, then you can try things out. You can push forward. You can define those roadmaps. I think, again, I'd have to wrap it around AI agents and agentic AI. This is a workforce that can help you now. It can help you a lot more in the future. Just think of the areas of your business where increased productivity, and this can be simple to medium complexity, could be handed off to a team of agents. Just think of the difference to your company from having this available.
Welcome to Pioneers, the show where we explore the intersection between humanity and AI. I'm your host, Ankur Patel. Over the last 10 years, I've built 3 AI startups, written 2 books about the subject, and I run a weekly AI newsletter. I also regularly teach and speak about the topic at conferences. This technology has grown faster than I think any of us could have imagined, and it's making us ask really important questions, such as how ethical is AI? What will this technology look like in a few years, let alone a few months? And most importantly, does it have the power to truly change the world? And what does it mean for you? On this show, I'll be interviewing the founders, operators, and pioneers that are introducing AI into their companies and industries. We'll be asking them the really heavy-hitting questions that make them dig deep into the core of what we do. And without further ado, let's dive into today's episode. Hi, welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Ankur Patel, and today my guest is Mike Downing, the CTO and CIO of WPA Health Insurance. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hi.
Mike, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do at WPA?
Yeah, Mike Downing, CTO at WPA Health Insurance. We're a UK-based health insurer. What I'm currently doing is exploring how we can use recent developments in AI to improve productivity across the company with a focus on driving the company forward.
Now, I think when we typically think of the healthcare industry and health insurance, especially in the US, but I imagine some of this holds true in the UK, we don't think of this space as being the most risk-taking space. And part of that has to do with regulatory and compliance concerns. Usually it's spaces like technology or finance that tend to be quicker to adopt, and insurance is a little bit slower, maybe because the nature of insurance is to mitigate risk as opposed to take on risk. So when it comes to AI, how risk-seeking has insurance been so far in adopting some of the newer technologies versus just waiting it out and seeing what really transpires across other verticals and then adopting later on in the life cycle?
Yeah, I've seen exactly what you described across the industry. People are holding back. People are not embracing exploring and trying out this technology. What we've done at WPA Health Insurance is concentrated on the back office. So concentrated on productivity of our back office processes. In this way, it's a safer way to implement this technology. It's not customer facing. It is our back office processes. So we're also learning a lot from that, which in time we can take forward into other areas.
That makes a lot of sense. We see the same. I think you don't want AI experiences to touch the customer directly. And so you start internally. And initially, it is more about productivity and efficiency. And the back office and then middle office are really critical areas where you could start experimenting, introducing, having productivity gains from that. In the back office, I'm curious, what workflows or processes have you earmarked and started to work on as the first few use cases?
We built a system about 7 years ago using machine learning and deep learning. In sort of mid-2023, we decided to rewrite that into Gen AI. So it's things like document reading, classification, validation, adjudication, and processing. And that's across our claims, invoices, admin. Pretty much every workflow in the back office is now touched by these teams of agents.
Was that entirely a homegrown effort, or did you use some third-party vendors along the way to make that happen over the past 7 years?
So we've got quite a big tech team internally, but we work with 2 partners. One's a software house in Romania, and the other one is a data and AI consultancy in the UK. So primarily in-house, because we like to look after our own systems, but equally it's good to reach out to partners from time to time.
And now, in terms of impact, right? Because I think what you mentioned is past 7 years, you took traditional machine learning, predictive modeling, and such. Now, maybe more generative AI. What have been some of the big successes? Maybe if you could help quantify the impact that some of this technology has had. I'm curious where the gains have been.
Comparing the previous system with the new system, accuracy has improved, throughput has improved. It's been quite a game changer. The other thing of interest is the maintenance. So the code in the old system was quite extensive, quite complex. In the new system, because there's a lot of reach out to LLMs, the capability is there. The code is a lot simpler, a lot smaller, and we can build solutions much faster.
And has that impacted the number of people you need to operate those workflows? So, in other words, has there been some personnel reduction as a result, or are the gains elsewhere?
No, it's our company policy not to reduce staff. It's all about freeing up staff to do more value-added work. So the more we can automate, the more people we have available to add value for the customer and service the customer needs. It's one thing that WPA is proud of is the customer service.
Where have you repositioned those individuals? So I imagine that they were doing some work, maybe more administrative in nature. And it would be great if you could maybe elaborate on what those tasks were, where they're spending less time now. And then I think what you're alluding to is the fact that now those same individuals can spend more time with the customer, improving customer service. But what were they doing before that is now more freed up through technology and then is enabling them to do more customer service?
It's the classification of documents, so reading those documents. That was done by humans at one point. The classification, the understanding, the processing, the data entry, all of that is now being moved to the machine. That frees up the staff to do service at a higher level. So when a customer has a query, that customer is getting it answered faster because we have more staff available now to do that work.
And in what other areas of that workflow do you think are ripe for automation given some of the new technologies around generative AI? Because it makes sense, the classification of documents, the document processing and data extraction, a lot of the data entry work, like what is typically, I guess, called as intelligent document processing. That's a great starting point for a lot of companies. But I'm curious, where else, like beyond that in the value chain, do you think you could start automating given what you've seen with generative AI so far?
I think we could touch every process within the company. It's a matter of the time to build the solutions, bring them to market. But I think there are a lot of areas, for example, business development, where we could add this, potentially finance, and medical areas. One other thing that we are building is co-pilots. We're building co-pilots internally, again, with the same technology, lang chain, reaching out to LLMs to assist our human operators. So some of our staff are call center. They will get questions regarding policy, benefits, eligibility. By having a co-pilot available that can serve up the answers in real time to our staff to relay to the customer, that ensures consistency and accuracy of message.
I think that's right. I think some of the search capabilities that individuals want to have the employees to get answers more quickly, to go and serve the customer, is an incredible area where generative AI can be very helpful. And that's search not just on documents, so like RAG and such, but it's also searching across databases that you're using, other software vendors, or you're using CRMs, call logs. So a more universal search experience that aids the knowledge worker in getting answers and then being able to use them to serve the customer better. I also think, based on some of the work we're seeing, it's also on decisioning, which is, can you help make some decisions that humans would have had to make? You might still have a human review the decision, but it's more supervisory in nature versus having to do the actual evaluation and such from scratch. And then another great area is actually creating like basically reports, right? Documentation that you might need. So helping craft kind of the finished final product, typically, that's where we've seen a lot of good generative AI work. And so this is now going well beyond intelligent document processing and also well beyond some of the robotic process automation work that we've seen over the years.
That's an area that we've spent a lot of time in. We've got an engine that's got machine learning models in it. which looks at claims, looks at treatment, pre-authorization, eligibility, and makes decisions based on the data that's brought together. Now, we are looking at enhancing that with Gen AI and bringing it to a much more modern approach. But yeah, that uses things like SNOMED, which is a graph of the human body and everything that goes wrong with the human body. And using our model from that, we can make predictions over medical conditions, future medical conditions, and eligibility for treatment.
So let's talk a little bit about customer service as well, because I know that's a very big topic for many companies. I think one approach has been to use something like Azure OpenAI and create a RAG architecture to go serve up answers to serve the customer. Like that's a more homegrown way. I'm curious if that's the approach you've taken, or you've maybe looked at other options or other vendors. And then my follow-up question to that really is, what makes customer service hard to do well um, in the way that you would want to have long term, right? So, like, I guess, sort of, where are we in getting to a very polished form of AI enabled customer service?
Yeah, so we've built all our co-pilots internally. They're running on LangChain. They bring data together from different sources. So we've got our product information. We've got then our customer information come as JSON that will be brought together. It's about serving the information at the right time to answer those customer questions. You could call it hyper-personalization. When that customer calls, if we can work out why we think that customer's calling, bring all the data together, and then serve up the answer directly to one of our agents, that saves the customer time, but also saves them having to repeat. Now, we're not looking to serve that up directly to customers. Maybe in a few years' time we will.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's more for employees internally to use to get to the answer more quickly and then serve to the customer. So you're not using any AI, like fully AI based, like call tree to go and give answers. Because that's something we see in some verticals, which is a customer calls in, they either get a voice bot or a chat bot, like text based chat bot, and they're helping them get to the right answer, right? Particularly if the answer is like easy to get from some sort of FAQ, some documentation, maybe some internal data. And then basically, if the customer's like, no, I really need to talk to a person because like you're not giving me the right answers, then you would bring in a human operator, and the human operator may or may not be using AI tooling, but let's just say there's a co-pilot the employee is using, then the employee is enabled to more quickly get to answers and then serve the customer. But you could almost see this as like different types of AI. You have like a simpler AI to serve up to the customer first. And if the simpler AI can't get to the right resolution, then you have the employee assisted by a maybe more complex AI that's supporting the customer experience. But yeah, it's various types of AI that interact in a longer sequence.
Yeah, and for us, we wouldn't offer up a text-based chatbot at the front. The reason being, with health insurance, you tend to want to speak to a human when you've got a medical problem and you want to make a claim. So it's that empathy I think we'd lose by going for a text-based. But with the agent assist, I think we got the best of both worlds. We got the accuracy, the timeliness, but also that human on the call. Now in time, that could be an AI-generated human. That 3, 5 years, 10 years down the line, that may change. And then you got empathy from what you think is a human and what you're interacting is a human.
Yep. That's right. That's right. That makes a lot of sense. In terms of customer service and the impact that you've had, do you have some like maybe high level metrics that you could share to some degree, which is like how much on average, how much time have you shaved off of call times in terms of resolution? I don't know if you've measured any sort of NPS scores with customers, but just curious, like what it was before, like maybe 2, 3 years ago versus what does it look like today?
Yeah. So it's not something we've measured. It's very difficult to get the impact of the co-pilots and actually give a measurement. We also don't measure the impact of our AI on a customer level. We measure customer feedback many other ways, and then we bring that together then as an overall score. And also from things like Trustpilot, we get a score there. So it's about the entire customer service experience. Now, in time, as more and more co-pilots come in, we might see an impact on those calls, on those call lengths. But for now, we've not measured that.
Let's talk a little bit about what's hard around the use of this technology. What would you call maybe disappointments or failures, at least to date, right, that are notable to maybe call out? And what have you learned from those as you continue to build in this space?
One thing we learned very early, so sort of September 2023, we started building out these systems, and we've released a new version, let's say, every 6 weeks. What we quickly learned was the technology is changing rapidly.
Mhm.
So what you build today, you may well have to change it. You may well have to restart because something new's come along that's dramatically changed the landscape, or you keep on using something that's now obsolete. So it's a constant learning challenge. A lot of that learning and training is, again, being written all the time. You need to keep up. You need to watch every news source to understand where things are going, when new versions are coming out. Not everybody can do that. We can't bring the entire tech team with us. So you tend to rely on certain individuals who can follow and can keep up with these technology changes because it is so rapid.
I think that's right. I think we're seeing that across our customers as well, and people we speak with, other companies. It's obviously the pace of change is very dramatic
Yeah.
in terms of everything, infrastructure like GPUs, foundation models. Certainly, I mean, you could see that with DeepSeek kind of changing things very fast in the reasoning space. Even the tooling layer, the inference optimization, AI agent frameworks, vector databases, evolution of RAG, particularly use of graph. And so I think part of it is you have to be nimble. My question and concern, at least, is the following: is that over time, you're going to have agentic AI across many workflows across your organization, maybe dozens. And obviously, you do have a sizable engineering team. You work with partners, but how do you find a way to maintain the repos and the code bases and do the upgrades and monitor everything? Because that seems like basically the number of AI that you introduce, the types of AI that you introduce as it increases, you're almost having to increase the engineering footprint in order to kind of maintain those repos. And I'm just wondering, is there a way for software to help enable some of that? So software to help manage the AI, so it's easier to handle the complexity without having to increase the number of number of engineers in a linear manner.
One of the answers to that is prioritization, just picking out the things that really matter to the business. For parts of our AI solutions, we use Databricks. There's a product called ML Flow in there that helps you manage the solutions to check that they are still working as expected. The other thing that worked with a lot this year and towards the end of last year is using LLMs to help out coding. So these are products where you can ask it to write that piece of code, to develop that piece of code, which then, because we're experienced, we can look at, and we don't just implement it, but we can check it out. And that brings our time to market down. And now quite a lot of the code in this area is initially written by LLMs, let's call it.
Exactly. So coding assistance and such,
Exactly.
that helps quite a bit. But what about just upgrading models? Like, are you able to systematically upgrade the models, train the models? Maybe if you're doing any fine tuning, measuring feedback to triangulate to better like different versions of AI agents that you introduce. How are you managing let's say the versioning and evolution of what you initially push out from the engineering side?
Versioning and evolution, it's looking at our KPIs. So we got
Mhm.
KPIs around all of these processes. We can see if there's a drop off in consistency or accuracy or that, and then we will take action either by getting an LLM to do some coding for us, or we'll code it up ourselves. As far as fine tuning, that's something that we've not needed yet. Potentially in the future.
Yep, that makes sense. Particularly as you get to more complex cases, right? I think that's right. I think then that's when you might need to inject some of your company or workflow specific domain expertise into the models.
Exactly.
But you could go and work with on simpler workflows. You could kind of get up and running pretty quickly. So I think that makes sense. The prioritization of effort. Maybe let's talk about some of the compliance and ethical considerations around use of AI, right? That's kind of a common topic, AI in regulated spaces. How do you go and make sure that you're being compliant, that you've addressed bias? You have all these considerations that you've addressed. And I think one of the criticisms of DeepSeek is that it's biased. All models, just like people, are biased because it's all based on the training data and how you curate it, and the people that are curating the data are human as well, right? And so I'm curious, do you have like a model risk management function to look at which models you could use, and how are you thinking about compliance and ethics in regard to the AI that you introduce?
Yeah. So on the compliance and legal side, we lean on the compliance and legal teams a lot. That they will look to best practice to regulation, and we will follow their guidelines. Security, we are ISO 27001. We follow that. Security is front and center of everything that we do. As far as the AI solutions we have so far, in my opinion, there's no room for bias. So what I mean by that is if a claim arrives and we're validating it and looking for eligibility, it's the medical condition that we're looking at. So it's a process that's quite defined. If we process in an invoice, similarly, it's a process that's quite defined. So there's not much room in these back office systems for bias, let's say different groups.
Yeah, you're saying there's not interpretation that's involved. It's more
Right.
black and white depending on the rules that were set up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's right. There are guardrails around the use of AI, right? AI is just kind of following whatever the guardrails that were set. Now, the guardrails could be wrong, or they might need to be like basically reconfigured. But that's done by humans, and then AI is just kind of coloring in between the lines.
Exactly. And we've got about 250 different products, each with a different guardrails, even tips. And that's where the product rules will adjust, and then the process will adjust to those rules.
Makes a lot of sense. What about areas outside of customer service and the back office? So the things like distribution or underwriting processes, are you seeing more in basically the generation of insurance policies and what gets underwritten and how it gets underwritten and such? How much of AI is being introduced there?
Not a lot so far. That's very much on the future roadmap. The only thing I'd say is we've rolled out a number of other co-pilots for like knowledge Q&A for various departments. For example, our medical department, that's got a dedicated co-pilot front for they can ask the questions that matter to them.
I'm wondering why that is. Is it just because it's too core to the business and there is risk with basically introducing AI in those functions? Why limit it to the back office, especially because you've been doing this for some time, you've seen success there. When do you get to the point of moving beyond the back office?
One of the reasons is it's a small team that's working on this, so it's all about time and prioritization. I would think throughout this year we'll start to expand throughout other areas, looking for the most valuable use cases and aligning with business needs.
Yep, that makes sense. It's just a matter of like when do you get to it, and you're starting with in areas that are maybe more ripe for introduction of AI, and then kind of moving beyond that. What about fraud? Right, I think fraud has always been a concern. It always is a concern because the bad actors keep changing their behavior to go and fool the systems to take advantage. But basically, AI is getting better to detect fraud, but the fraudsters also have AI to go and get around some of the. So it's like good cop, bad cop. Both the cops are getting better along the way. What have you seen in terms of trends in fraud detection that you could speak to that either has made the job of detecting fraud easier or harder along the way?
There's not a lot of it in UK health insurance. The area where it's potential is cash plans. So these are things like dental plans, spectacles, and things like that. So there is potential there, and we've got various models that look for anomalies in claiming. On the more health insurance side, so this is where you'd go to a hospital, have a consultant, have an operation. There's not as much room there for fraud, but we do have a number of models that look through for anomalies. These could be drug anomalies, drugs that are given that don't quite match the treatment, or too much of a certain amount of treatment that just becomes an outlier. So it's about anomaly detection along various streams to find things that just don't look quite right, and then they'll pass to a human.
What future innovations in AI do you believe will have the most impact on health insurance?
I think it's the same as most industries. I think agentic AI, as that evolves, as that really matures, I think we'll start to see things that we just imagined today being processed by the machine more and more in the future, especially as more complex tasks get undertaken by the agents. I think that's a real game changer that's going to change a lot of industries, not just health insurance.
Yeah, it makes sense. Very helpful. And I think that's right. I think it's hard to kind of look around the corner. But even if you just take a look at all the technologies that we've seen more recently in the last 2 years, as long as those continue to mature, there is so much that you could do. I mean, you could have your hands full over the next 3 years in terms of just applying some of the
Yeah.
technology that's been developed over the past 2 years. So in some ways, if there's more innovation, which there will be, that only will make the job more complicated, right? And just more to do because we have
Yeah.
our hands full over the next few years, even with what we have.
But equally, if AI can assist on the building of those systems, so today, the coding tools can write code. In the future, it will write agents, it will prepare agents, it will prepare teams of agents that will solve problems.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So they could be helpful in the application of this
Exactly.
uh, over time as well. And I agree with that. I think that the coding assistants are getting a whole lot better here as well. And as you look at basically like the labor force and how they can go and equip themselves with the skills that they need to work alongside AI, what do you think will be skills that all healthcare professionals will need to have in order to work well with some of the agentic AI and AI agents and such that are coming online in this space?
I think that it's time to embrace and explore. Use your imagination. These tools are going to become more and more accessible. At the moment, it's primarily targeted at software developers. But as they become more and more open to everybody to make use of, it's early days with this technology, but it will mature. So in my view, for everybody, not just software developers, if you embrace it now, when it matures in a couple of years' time, you'll have a number of years' experience to roll straight into this. And I think that's the way for everybody. Just access the products that work for you, learn them, and just keep up to date with them. The other thing I think for companies to consider is the next generation of workers. These people will be using agents to organize their lives. They will expect to use agents in the office, at their work, and they will pick employers that will give them agentic solutions to do their work rather than do it the hard way.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that, right? It's like I think the newer set of workers that grow up with AI will want to have AI enabled experiences in the office, right? Because it's going to help them get work done more quickly. It's going to take the type of work that they normally wouldn't want to do anyways. And so they wouldn't be that as fearful because they're used to AI, having grown up with AI, right? I think what's a little bit harder is you spend 20, 30 years working in a role, AI comes online, now all of a sudden it may be doing more of what you do. But I would say even for those individuals in a like technically complex space like healthcare insurance, it's hard. They have a lot of domain expertise. So you're not overnight going to see AI kind of do the full breadth of work that a 20, 30-year veteran is doing. So I don't think they should be fearful of their jobs. Like, I don't think it's about job or role replacement. It's about task displacement, right? You're going to see some tasks that get displaced with AI. And those tasks are going to be the ones that these individuals don't want to be doing anyways. And so I think the whole thing about, oh, wow, this is going to have a dramatic shift in the labor force and lead to a lot of unemployment. I just think that's less likely in complex spaces like health or finance and insurance. Something that we see with our customers as well. People aren't getting fired right now at all. And so, and if you look at the unemployment rate in the US, for example, it's at some of the lowest levels of all time. I just don't think that there is this like the fear mongering around job loss it's yet to transpire, and it may never transpire in some of these verticals.
Is it exactly? And those people you just described are well placed to train or set up the agents to do their work and almost become the orchestrators of agentic systems and solve more and more problems.
Exactly. They become the orchestrators, the conductors, the supervisors, whatever analogy you want to use around getting work done. And they're coaching and training the AI agents, right? They have a fundamental role to play. And if anything, all of a sudden, each of those individuals now have like 5 to 10 different versions of AI that they're using and providing feedback to and coaching.
Right.
So pretty neat like orchestration that's about to happen in the years to come.
Exactly, and that allows the companies to scale up. You know, if one experienced person can now do 3 experienced people's work through using agentic AI, that just gives you more capability, more resource.
You mentioned earlier you use Databricks. I don't think you mentioned which hyperscaler you're on, but very curious what you use. You mentioned LangChain. You also mentioned that you use teams in Romania and you have a consulting firm. So it seems like you have a preference to go and do engineering homegrown with partners, but like more custom development on some platforms, like maybe Databricks. I'm curious how you're looking at the buy, build, partner decision with AI or agentic AI that's coming online. How do you decide what to do in-house versus what to go and purchase from a vendor?
Yeah, so our prime focus is in-house. We want to build our own systems. We want to define our own roadmap, our own have control of our systems. We look externally. We look across the market. We look in all different industries to see what's happening. We bring those ideas back, and then we will build in-house with our Romanian software development partner, and we will reach out to some consultants as needed just to give us that extra edge. But yeah, it's very much a build mentality is the approach that we take.
And I'm curious how you came to that, because we see all over the place, right? Some very much leading to build, some very much leading to buy, some kind of in between. I'm curious philosophically as an organization, what led you to that decision and what continues to kind of keep you in that camp so far?
Yeah, it's a long-term decision. It's the way the company's approached this for, I'd say, 35 years, and it's the way we'll keep on doing it. It's very much about wrapping up our USP within our software, being able to change it quickly, have the agility, the scalability, because we control that software.
Yep, it makes sense. There's a level of control that you'd like, and that's been kind of a ethos of the company for a very long time. And I think the great thing is that you can go and choose what to do and how to do it, because it is easier to build, right? And so you could go and do it homegrown. And if you want to accelerate that, you could choose vendors, but you kind of have your mix of build by partner. Yeah, and then that's like a very, very, in some ways, like a very personal decision, organization by organization.
Exactly, and there's nothing better than an internal team having pride in what it's just built for the company and what it's the difference that it's made.
That makes a lot of sense. What about some of the data that you use to go and make the either predictive modeling or the agentic AI possible? Do you have a dedicated data function that is focused purely on what I'd say is like data curation to go train the models and to observe data quality issues to go and build out better agentic AI over time?
We've got one main system. Our data approach is relatively simple compared with other companies, and because of that, we can manage the data quite well. What we've done is recorded process actions across the system for a long time, which gives us really good training data, especially in the sort of machine learning world. What we found with the agentic system that we've now put in is the training data doesn't matter so much. It's about getting the right data together, the right instructions, and yeah, that works. And then we can fine tune those instructions in order to achieve more.
What advice would you give to other leaders looking to adopt AI technologies within their organizations?
In one word, start. I see a lot of companies almost making excuses. Oh, we can't start yet. We can't embrace it. We can't explore it. I think if the only way to learn this is hands-on, you can read all you want, but until you've actually played with it and experienced it and done those POCs and throw them away and then do another one and then do another one and then get some production systems from it, that's the way to learn. And there's no better time than now to start learning, because we're probably on the worst version at the moment and the better versions are coming.
Yeah, I mean, I think fighting that inertia, getting started, using this moment to learn and experiment. Like, it's not going to be perfect day one, right? Like, I think usually it's like the third version of something that is really great. And so you got to get to the first and second version pretty quickly, because if you want that really great version, that's going to be version 3 or later, right? And so I think you got to iterate pretty quickly. And now's the time to go be doing that instead of waiting on the sideline. So I think that's a great thing to call out for all companies as they're thinking through how to take on agentic AI or do AI agents, get caught up to speed with everything that's happening right now.
Yeah, the other thing to consider is optimize your company to the rate of change that's necessary to progress with AI and get comfortable with change. Because if you got that foundation in place, then you can try things out. You can push forward. You can define those roadmaps.
If there's one key takeaway about the future of AI and health insurance that you'd like our listeners to remember, what would it be?
I think again, I'd have to wrap it around AI agents and agentic AI. This is a workforce that can help you now. It can help you a lot more in the future. Just think of the areas of your business where increased productivity, and this can be simple to medium complexity, could be handed off to a team of agents. Just think of the difference to your company from having this available.
Love that, Mike. Really appreciate that. For our listeners that would love to learn more about WPA or follow you, what's the best place to find you?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. You'll find me on there. And for WPA, our website, wpa.org.uk, has all of our information on there.
Amazing. We'll include that in the show notes. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you.